Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to never miss an update.
Let's look at the mission of IIMs. We want to create responsible leaders for the future.
Sir, why is CAT the right exam to find MBA candidates?
So there are a couple of perspectives over here. One is CAT is not the exam for selection. CAT is the exam. CAT is one of the exams for selection. So if you look at the way IIMs have moved, so earlier it used to be just the CAT score, and we took people purely based on CAT. Subsequently, what we realized was that there were certain other elements that we perhaps needed to look at. So we started bringing in the elements of class, marks from class 10, class 12, graduation, interviews, written analysis tests, etc. Why? Because we believe that CAT is a strong enough exam for us to do the first screening, and it is partially a good exam for selection process. And why so? Because once again, when we look at leaders, ultimately one of the big tasks of leaders is to make decisions. And if a person has to make good decisions, I think the three skills which are required of a good decision maker are the skills of comprehension. The person should be able to understand the problem in its entirety, should be able to do some number crunching, so therefore some quantitative methods, and should be able to approach the problems logically. And therefore the logic and data interpretation, they come as logical reasoning, and data interpretation come as the third element. And therefore we think that CAT is a very robust exam which actually tests students on a very important skill of potential leadership. But as I said, we are evolving, and so you would have seen that even CAT has evolved over the period of time. So it's we are trying to create some kind of a balance. We have also experimented at times by giving more weight to comprehension, sometimes by giving more weight to quantitative methods, sometimes by giving more weight to DI and LR, etc. So we are also constantly experimenting. But what we have found steadily through established quantitative statistical research is that the CAT scores are a very good predictor to the overall performance of a candidate. So therefore CAT is a good exam, and it has been statistically established. But as I said, it does not count for everything. So for example, at IIM Indore, we also look for consistency in academics, and therefore you would see that we have a slightly higher weight so far as class 10th and class 12th exams are concerned. Earlier, we used to even take graduation marks, but then we realized that there's a big variation when it comes to graduation marks. So certain people, certain colleges in engineering, etc., have started giving 100%, which in my time when I did my engineering was completely unheard of. If I remember correctly, my topper had some 70% marks.
Even state boards and national boards,
even the boards are very, very different. And for example, to get something like even a 70 or an 80% from a Jadavpur University in Calcutta in economics would be perhaps a super achievement. And therefore we took away that component, because clearly that component was not giving us very robust results. But increasingly, written analysis tests. Now, this is something that has come in recently, which means only in the past 5-6 years. Similarly, we have experimented with GD. When we thought that GD group discussion made sense, some IIMs realized that perhaps it does not make sense, so on and so forth. And even when it comes to interview, the parameters on which we evaluate students have constantly evolved. So I would answer your question by saying CAT is not the only exam by virtue of which we select people, but it's a very useful exam for us to do the initial screening. It will be practically impossible for us. Ideally, I would want to interview all 200,000 candidates who are interested in doing an MBA. Clearly, I do not have the bandwidth to do so, and therefore we need something. CAT is the answer.
So you talked about diversity, and that's something that is big on everybody's mind. Not just diversity in terms of courses that people come from, but also gender diversity. So what are some of the steps that IIM Indore is looking to take to ensure diversity?
See, this is a very critical question, and the answer to this is something that is being debated. Unfortunately, it's being debated on only in the social media, and therefore we have extreme thoughts that come in with a lot of vehemence. People think that when we do some kind of a positive discrimination kind of step, it goes against equality, and it goes against merit. To begin with, people have to understand, what does merit really mean? Merit does not mean clearing an exam, be it CAT, be it GMAT, be it SAT, be it JEE, or anything. Merit means that you have the capability and potential to become what the program intends you to become. Now, what do we IIMs want our students to become? We want them to become ethical leaders. We want them to become responsible leaders who are going to shape the future of this country, participate in nation building, and perhaps also impact the future of this world. So we are looking at merit from that perspective, not merit as in clearing an exam. So this is something that people need to understand, that this is what merit means. Second, when we talk about equality, equality means that we treat people who have gotten equal opportunities, both physically and psychologically, at par.
Right.
So when people say that, okay, give primary education free to people from all strata of the society and that takes care of everything, they're completely forgetting the psychological impact of thousands of years of discrimination that we as a society have done towards our women and towards certain classes of the society. Those thousands of years of discrimination against women and certain classes of the society cannot go away simply by giving them free primary education and then assuming that now the race is completely even. So that is number one. I wanted to set this context. I'm so glad that you gave me an opportunity to do so. Second part, why is diversity important? Now again, let's look at the mission of IIMs. We want to create responsible leaders for the future.
Right.
Who will the responsible leaders be? Responsible leaders would be the one who would represent the thought processes, the hopes, and the aspirations of a wider set of people. What kind of leaders would we produce if we have only a particular set of a particular background of a particular gender in our classrooms to begin with? So first of all, diversity is necessary for the mission that we have. Second, even when it comes to a classroom conversation, predominantly you know that IIM Indore follows the case method where we discuss the nuances of a decision problem in the classroom and then we try and figure out what decision would be perhaps the optimum decision.
And in that there is a plenty of academic concepts that you end up learning
Absolutely.
in their practical form.
Absolutely.
Right.
Now, once again, a person coming from a certain background will always think about issues in a certain way. So, for example, let's say how much maternity leave should be given to a person without jeopardizing, forget maternity, even a paternity leave. Now, do you think it's only a set of men who will be able to give this correct answer? No, not at all. If we are talking about grassroots innovation, if we are talking about the wealth that lies at the bottom of the pyramid, don't you need people from the bottom of the pyramid to be present in this classroom, present in that classroom to actually make a contribution which would perhaps make more sense? And therefore, merely for the classroom discussions and the richness of what happens in the classroom, it is important to have diversity because one of the things people forget is that learning in an IIM does not happen from the person standing on the other side of the podium. Predominant learning happens because of the discussion within this peer group. And these discussions are not limited to the classroom. These discussions go beyond the classroom as well, where they do group work, where they are trying to analyze the case together. And therefore, an inclusive classroom is the only one which will help people make decisions which are inclusive in nature and not elitist and not exclusionary. And for that diversity, it's not even, I'm not even saying that diversity is important. Diversity is an imperative, which means we have to bring it in whichever possible ways. At IIM Indore, what we do is, first of all, of course, we make sure that we encourage women to participate in all the exams, etc. IPM program was another way in which we thought we would bring in diversity because we are taking in students right after class 12. And then in the interview, we have something called diversity factor at the end of the day, where if you are a woman, you are given some extra marks, and that is once again to bring in the diversity. But again, I don't think we are doing enough. There has to be more than and beyond these marks. There has to be the social movement so that the diversity is a part of our decision making itself. And decision making is not limited to an IIM or to my classroom. Decision making even in the homes. Who makes the decision in the home, in a house about things? It has to be an equal decision making.
I wanted to know right from the horse's mouth, how do you look at the batch size challenge that IIM Indore faces?
We have to look at it from two aspects. One is It's a fact that if you have a smaller batch size, it's far more easier to place them. But as I've always maintained, IIMs are not a placement agency. We are an organization, we are an institution that helps produce leaders. And once we are providing the right kind of an input, and with my more than 105 faculty members, I think we are very, very well positioned to do so. Finding a job for my students is not going to be an issue. The second important factor that comes in is the classroom management. Yes, true. Now that becomes an issue because there's a particular size to which you can take a classroom till it works efficiently. But you'll be happy to note that even today at IIM Indore, despite the fact that we have close to 500 more students than any other IIM, our classroom size is still 75. Now, I'm sure that you know that in several IIMs, the classroom sizes have gone to 90, they are 100 plus. Even an institute like Harvard has a classroom size, minimum classroom size of 90. We have still managed to keep the classroom size of 75. So far as the inputs are concerned, it's not going to be a problem at all. In fact, I think we are mandated as an IIM to increase our strength.
This brings me to the situation that India specifically faces, which is that there is a lack of large number of elite institutions providing high quality education. We've come to about 20 IIMs now, and probably this country needs 200 IIMs for it to provide high quality education to a lot of its youngsters. What is your view on that? What direction can we take so that we can scale up just the number of leaders that are coming out of elite campuses in India?
You're right. I mean, probably this country needs 200 IIMs. We have only 20 so far. But the whole point is we need to first prepare the groundwork. Because if you don't prepare the ground, no matter what seed you sow, you will not get a good harvest. You cannot get a good harvest. And therefore, if you want to create a premium business school, what are those things that you need to do as a groundwork? First of all, you need super good faculty.
Yeah.
You need superstar faculty members. We don't have enough strong PhD programs in our country, and we do not have enough incentive systems in place to attract people who have done their PhDs from other countries or people who are out there. So that is going to be our first requirement. The second is infrastructure. Now, you have certain IIMs who are facing problems simply because they are located in a place where even getting to that place, commuting to that place is a big problem. Now, I can see two sides to it. Of course, I can understand that it may make sense for people to establish an IIM in such a place, assuming that IIMs will then
Develop that place.
Will develop that place, and companies will start coming and infrastructure will start getting built. But I think till such time that happens, it becomes a little not too good for the students in there. So the first few batches always tend to be kind of the batches which make a lot of sacrifice. But if we can simultaneously work on these issues, so which means good faculty, good infrastructure, and then the third would be good practices, because IIMs are all autonomous bodies, and of course there's an IIM which is always asked to mentor another IIM,
Right.
but we do not have the wherewithal to mentor. So, as for example, IIM Indore has mentored two IIMs, the other IIMs have mentored an equal number of other IIMs. But the whole point is that we ourselves do not have that kind of a bandwidth to mentor people. So ultimately, it becomes very difficult for us to request our faculty to go and teach in those IIMs. And at the most they can do is teach. They can't really be a part of the institutional development.
Right.
And therefore, I think the planning has to be done much in advance, number one. Number two, even when it comes to the institutional building, of course, it is the prerogative of the government to decide where an IIM should be built. But I think they should also take the views and the opinions and the perspectives from the IIMs they expect to mentor those IIMs about where should they be, what should the timelines be of different things. So even if you have founded for example, IIM Indore was founded in 1996, but we took our first PGP batch in 1998. We waited for 2 years till we could get things in place. Whereas what is happening with the current IIMs is that they are being told to immediately start running the program as soon as they are founded, not giving them any grounds to prepare. So I think these are some of the issues which need to be considered. And of course, I totally agree with you. There have to be more IIMs, but with a whole lot of planning. And those IIMs who are expected to be mentors should be brought into that think tank before making the decisions about where that IIM should be and what should the timelines for that IIM be.